Hello everyone, let us see digital painting in Photoshop. So let us start. So here we are doing the digital painting of Hrithik Roshan, a famous Indian film star. Right. So the first thing we are supposed to do is we have to select the subject, select this actor. So to select this actor, here we have an option select and mask. We'll simply click on it, and in case you can't find the select and mask, we have to activate either quick selection tool or object selection tool. Right. So I have activated the quick selection tool, and now we will simply click on select and mask. Right, and here we will simply click on select subject. So now we have selected the subject, and we don't have to change any of these settings. The only thing we are supposed to select is we can just simply click on this decontaminate colors, and also we have to change this output to option as new layer with layer mask, and simply we will click OK. Right, so now we have perfectly selected the actor, and we have also perfectly selected his hair. So in case we think that we have not selected his hair properly, we can always go inside the mask. So how to go inside the mask? We simply have to hold Alt and click on this mask thumbnail. So we can either use Alt or Option in the Mac and click on this layer mask thumbnail. Right. So here we can see. So just we have to observe the edges here. So it's alright. We can do some small changes. So we can select a brush. We can select a soft rounded brush, and we'll keep the blending mode as overlay, and we can just erase some unwanted areas around the edges. So here we can see, and make sure that you keep black as the foreground color. Right. So just we have adjusted a little bit. So if we do extra painting around the edges, we might lose some important details. So let's stop here. So now we will come out of the mask editing mode. Simply we will hold Alt and click on this layer mask thumbnail. Right, this looks better. And here we will change the overlay blending mode to normal. Right. So now we can start digital painting, but before that we'll do something. So what we'll do is we will just right click on this mask thumbnail, and here we will simply select apply layer mask. Right. So now we have confirmed the mask. So now we only get the area that we have selected. Right. So one more thing we'll do is we will try to increase the document size, or let us say canvas size. So we'll simply activate the crop tool by hitting C on the keyboard, and we will create some extra space. Right. And also one more thing we'll do is we don't want the subject to be till the hands here. We want the subject to be till his chest. We will only select till the chest. So what we'll do is just we will use the lasso tool, and we will just draw a selection around the subject, and we can also use some feather. So we'll give a feather value of, let us say 9. Right. And now what we'll do is we will apply a layer mask again, and we can also slightly just increase the or move the selection, and we'll apply a layer mask again. Simply at the bottom of the layers panel we have this layer mask, right? So once we have applied this mask, so this is the area that we are going to use for digital painting. So again we will simply right click on the mask and we'll say apply layer mask, right? So now we are all set to start digital painting. Digital painting of Hrithik Roshan, right? Just we will place Hrithik at the center of the document, and the next thing we'll do is we'll first apply a filter. So we'll go to filter, and here we have a sharpen, and in sharpen we have unsharp mask. So we will apply this filter to Hrithik Roshan, right? You can just put a value of, let us say 250, right? So this much is better, and we will keep the radius as 6, right? So this looks better. So now we'll simply click OK. So this is very important step. Unsharp mask is a very important step, right? So now we'll start digital painting. So how we will paint? So we will use the smudge tool. So we will use the smudge tool, and we'll keep the strength value for the smudge tool as 38%, right? So now we are all set to start digital painting. We need to just zoom into the image, and we'll start painting. So all we have to do is we have to just reduce the size of the icon, the smudge tool icon, and start painting over the subject. So something like this. We'll first complete the skin, and then we will proceed to the hair. So after spending time and painting with the smudge tool, now we are going to paint highlights and shadows on the subject. So we'll just take a new layer and we'll select a brush and we'll select soft rounded brush, right, and we'll first paint highlights. We'll simply call highlights. So we'll be painting skin highlights, right. So what we'll do is we'll simply click on this foreground color swatch and we will pick the brightest color. So the brightest spot on the skin is over here, right. And now what we'll do is we'll select the brush and make sure that the flow value is not more than, let's say, 14%. So let's keep it to 14%, right. So now we will just paint the highlights and we need to understand where the highlights are, right. So there are highlights on our forehead and there are highlights on nose, and there are some highlights near cheeks, and also there are highlights on his neck. So we should not paint too much because it looks unnatural, right. So something like this, right. So this much is enough, right. So the next thing is we will now start painting shadows. We'll take one more layer and we will rename it shadows, right. Then we will again click on the foreground color swatch and we will pick a dark spot or a dark spot on the skin. So a darker color is over here, right. So once we have picked the dark color, again we'll select the soft rounded brush and also make sure that the flow value is 14%, and we should paint highlights in particular areas, not everywhere. Sorry, shadows. We need to paint shadows in specific areas. So here we can observe here. So the corners of his face are a little bit dark. So only in those places we have to paint the shadows. So something like this. This looks better. So also there are some shadows on his nose. There are some dark spots near his eyes. So we should not paint too much. Just some amount of coloring is enough, right. So this looks better, right. So now the next step is we will take a merged copy of this image. So means instead of merging all the existing layers, we will take a merged copy. So how we can take a merged copy of all the layers? Simply we will use a keyboard shortcut Ctrl+Alt+Shift and E, right, or we can use Command Option Shift and E in Mac, right. So once we are done with this, now we will just take one more layer above the subject layer and we will change the blending mode to color. So we will also paint some dual lighting, right. So what we'll do is we will just select a brush. Make sure that you select soft rounded brush and we will select a green color, right. and increase the size of the brush and make sure that the flow value is 14%. Don't increase the flow, and we have to just slightly paint on the side of this face, but more importantly we have to make it into a clipping mask, because we might paint outside the subject. So we'll just make this layer into a clipping mask. So we'll clip it to the subject, right? And we can say dual lighting, right? So now let's start painting, right? So this color will only be limited to the subject, and we'll take one more layer and we will also clip it to the subject layer, and we'll just give it a name, dual lighting 2, right? And we will paint a pure red color. So we'll just paint a pure red color on the right side, so something like this. So this is a dual lighting, right? So then the next step is, right, we will take one more layer and we'll make his eyes a little bit greenish, and make sure that you select the color blending mode, and we will increase the flow now. We'll increase the flow to 100%, and we'll just select a pure green color. We'll reduce the size of the brush and just simply click here, so we can see. So we can see the eyes are pure green, and if you think that the green color is too much, we can slightly reduce the opacity, right? This looks better, right? So now the next step is we will just take one more layer and we will try to select his lips. So we'll just rename the layer lips, right? We will select the pen tool. We will just select his lips using the pen tool, and make sure that path option is active for the pen tool, and we can carefully select his lips area. So we can use the direct selection tool to just adjust these points. So once we have selected his lips, so now we will convert the path to a selection. Simply we will hit Ctrl Enter or Command Enter in Mac, right? So then we will just right click and apply some feather to the selection. So let's give a feather value of 5, right? Now we will simply select a pure red color, and we will apply the red color using Alt and backspace or Option backspace in Mac, right? So then we will change the blending mode to soft light, so we can see here. So now this looks better. So if you want a more reddish color, we can take a duplicate, right? And we will also do one more thing. We can just open hue and saturation. We'll go to image adjustments, and here we have hue and saturation, and we can just slightly move this slider, so in case, so we don't want too much redness on his lips, we can just move it to the left side, and we can also just control the lightness here, but don't make it look artificial. Okay, this looks better, right? Okay, and we'll take one more layer above the lips layer, and we'll give it a name, lips highlights, right? And we will select a brush, and we will just select a light color, and we will also reduce the flow amount to, let's say, 18%, and we can just we can just slightly paint the highlights on his lips. So we can make them look a little bit bright. Right, this much is enough. Right. So the next step is we'll also paint hair. Right. To paint hair, we'll just take an empty layer. We'll select a brush, and this time we'll select natural brush. So we can use a natural brush to paint hairs. So we can just find the natural brushes here. So we'll select the first one, and we'll just paint the light strokes first, and we'll rename the layer hair. Right. And we'll keep the flow as 18%, and we can just simply paint hairs, but we'll also ensure that we don't select the pure white color. We will just select some light grayish color. So this looks better. So we can just paint hair now. So we are painting bright spots on the hair. So something like this. Right, and we can select darker tones for the mustache actually. So we'll just zoom into the mustache, and just we can paint darker tones. Just we'll take one more layer, and we'll say dark hair tones. We can slightly increase the flow here. Just we can paint the dark tones, and make sure that you select only the natural brush. So we can create a French beard. Something like this. Right. And we can also use a mixer brush to actually blend these hairs. So here just below the brush tool we have the mixer brush tool. So we can use this mixer brush, and in case we find these hairs not so realistic, we can blend them. So what we can do is we can just reduce the mix percentage. 8 is okay, 8% is okay here. So we can just simply mix these strokes, something like this, something like this. Right, this much is okay. And we can also paint the dark strokes on his hair. And let's reduce the flow here. Let's keep it to, let's say, okay, 45 is okay. and we will make the stroke, make the color of the brush even darker. Right. So this one is okay, and we can just select the mixer brush, and we can just blend these strokes. Right. So this much is okay. Right. So the next step is, so now we will take one more merged copy. So to take one more merged copy, we just have to use ctrl+alt+shift+E or command-option-shift-E. Right. And then the next step is, we will just take one more duplicate. So simply we will use ctrl+j, and we will use a blending mode, that is overlay. So we can see here. So overlay blending mode adds extra bit of realism to the subject or to the digital painting. Right. So the next step is, so we will merge these two layers. Right. And we are also going to create a layer below this subject layer. Right. So we'll simply select a layer below this subject layer by holding Ctrl and clicking on this create new layer icon. Right. So then what we are supposed to do is, we will create a background, a nice, attractive, colorful background. So we'll select a brush. This time we'll select a powder brush. So where we can find the powder brush? So I have downloaded the powder brush from brusheasy.com. Right. So I will provide the link for the powder brush in the description. So I will select the powder brush, and then what I will do is, I will just paint different colors. So we'll just paint different colors. So we'll also increase the flow amount here. Right. So we have just applied different colors. So now what we'll do is, we'll create one more layer below this colorful background layer, and we will give it a pure black color. So simply we will select the foreground color as black, and we will hit Alt plus backspace or Option backspace in Mac. Right. Then we'll select the colorful background layer. We'll go to filter. We'll select camera raw. Right. And we will just scroll down and select optics. In optics we can find vignette, and we will reduce the vignette value, and we will also select the vignetting option in effects. We will also reduce it. So we can see a dark color background, dark color appears at the corners. Right. So we can see here. And now what we'll do is, we'll select this colorful background, and we will just go to filter, blur, and we will apply Gaussian blur. Right. And the radius is let's say 70. Right. This looks better. And then what we'll do is, we'll select the Hrithik's layer, and we will just apply mask to this, and we will just erase the bottom part. We'll select the soft rounded brush. So something like this. So one last thing we'll do is we will increase the size of the image, and we will also apply a curves adjustment for this image, and we can slightly reduce the lighting. So we can see here, don't reduce it too much, just slightly, right. So this is the digital painting of Hrithik Roshan, Indian film star. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please do like, subscribe and share, and if you have anything to say, do comment. See you again.